want to say to begin with, I do think when you want a child and you're with somebody who doesn't want a child, it is the best thing to do, right? I think that's very, very important because you have a finite amount of time in which you can have children. And if you're with somebody, it doesn't matter how amazing the sex was and how amazing the intimacy was. It's not that you are leaving him because you don't have those things. It's because you can't have children with him, and that trumps everything, right? Unless your desire to have children isn't as big as, you know, as the other thing. But if you want children, you will have to leave that relationship, and you did. So that's, like you said, your body knows it's right and it's good, but that doesn't quite solve. It actually is kind of worse because you're not looking back at, you know, the negative unraveling of the relationship. This makes it really, really tough. Because typically how we orient away from a partner is by remembering what didn't work or what wasn't good anymore. Right? And that typically, that knowledge of what wasn't right allows us to disengage. And very often when people leave relationships, you know, the sex has gotten somewhat boring or non-existent. There have been, you know, bickering or trouble or whatever. So it's much, much easier to orient away from that. It's very hard to orient away from an intact, positive, intimate, and sexually satisfying situation. So but it's not impossible, but it is tough, right? And so the thing to know, and you know this because you're experiencing it, is that most of your sexual or arousal stimulus is connected to that partner. And so you're not even afforded, let's say, the fantasies, because of course then that hurts your heart, right? And you don't want to do that. So it's a fairly normal thing that in the aftermath of something like what you're describing, people have a very hard time with arousal, with pleasure. You know, it's a bit of a kind of a depressed, low energy feeling as well, because you have to suppress so much. You know, so what you're feeling there is the suppression of the missing and the feeling, and so it's not a great place to be. However, there's hope, and the hope comes in a few different domains, right? So the first thing is, well, let me start with the second thing. Let me make the second thing the first thing. So, in absence of you dating, which you should, that's number 2, you know, but in absence of you dating, the thing to do is orient your sexual desire somewhere else. And you will have to work at that. And so one of the ways to do that, and you are in luck because this is the workshop to learn this, is what we're going to do in the second part of the workshop, where we engage with the male flavors, where you essentially orient your solo sexual practice towards a target, so to speak, that is not that man. And you kind of reprogram your arousal patterns to focus on something else so that you have a different orientation. That's super, super important. We'll do some of that, and then we can talk about how you connect that with your pleasure practice. So that's one. The second thing is you must start dating. I know you don't feel like it, but you must start dating. The point isn't that you find the father of your children. The point is that you slowly reshape your view of whom you're with. You don't even need to pick the perfect guys. You just need to date. And when I'm talking dating, I'm not even saying you have sex with people or anything like that. Just you go on coffee dates, you go on drinks, you go and sit with somebody in the park. You do whatever it takes so that you get as many different flavors of man in your system so you can make better distinctions, and also so that you reshape your orientation. Most women don't leave men until they have another man, right? And there's a reason for that, because we have to be oriented towards something. So, don't go, oh, I'm going to find the perfect husband now. Just go, I'm going to expose myself to as many different flavor of men, so I can actually see what's out there and what I really want, and so I can learn, like data research, so to speak, target research. Yeah. And then the third thing is that as far as the low energy goes, right, that comes mostly probably from not having grieved it properly. Well, have you howled, cried, gnashed your teeth? You haven't actually allowed the emotion, right? That you're pissed, and why the fuck couldn't he, and what the fuck is wrong with him, and that's the thing that makes you so tired. You know how much it takes to suppress anger? A lot. Anger is a very destructive emotion, right? Very destructive emotion. So you don't put the anger on him. You don't necessarily want to scream and shout and bash things, because that just opens more anger. You can't get out of anger by being angry, right? This is one of the big things that they found out, because, in the 60s and 70s, there were all these encounter groups where you'd hit things. It actually doesn't work. No, because you just open the anger pathway further. Remember, everything you do in repetition gets stronger. So you don't want to externalize the anger as in screaming or shouting or bashing things. You want to articulate it, right? So you want to articulate it in the letter. You direct it towards him. You're not sending the letters, of course, but you're directing it towards him, and then you'll leave it, and then you do it again the next day, and then you'll leave it, so that it goes somewhere, but it doesn't come back in your body as this repetition, right? So that's very important with anger, particularly. There is other ways to do it, like in nonlinear, you can allow anger to run through your system because you can count on the fact that it will leave. But don't scream or shout or hit something or throw, darts on his photo or whatever. Express it and then move it through the body. Yeah, no, just normal nonlinear. Yeah, let it rise and leave, rise and leave, rise and leave. Don't force yourself, but also don't suppress it. Yeah. So, yeah. But I think you'll find that that just by articulating it properly, it will give you a lot of energy back. Not because he's a bad guy or anything like that, but because as long as you're oriented towards him, there is no space for a really good man, right? The thing is, if you want father for your children and a provider and a husband and a supportive, man in your life, that kind of man, will get to that as well when we get to the flavors, is not attracted to a woman who is attracted to another guy still, or oriented toward another guy, right? Of course. We all know that, but it's very hard to do that. So the less you have to deal with him, the less you're oriented towards him, the better. For the time being. Can you be friends again, when you have children with somebody who you love? Yeah, but not before then. Who we become in the world, right, isn't something that you can engineer. You have to actually do it. It's not an armchair thing, right? You don't sit there and think about that and then poof, one day you open your eyes and you're in Peru with a bunch of women who are being helped by you. That's not how it goes, right? So I know you understand that. I'm just saying this to make, the point of you have to start somewhere. If you don't know yet how to do that, then find someone who does, or find an organization who does, who you can support, or where you can volunteer, or, where there's resources, there's lots and lots and lots of people doing things like that, where you could volunteer and get a sense of what exactly it is that your particular brand of that is, so to speak, right? So this could be anything from, there's lots of organizations that do like small business loans for women and education, or things like Heifer International. I don't know if you know who they are. Things. There's all kinds of stuff that you could volunteer your services and go on a trip, or find out how things are done, so that you get clarity on how you would do it. I had a calling, and I just went at it every single day from when I was 12 years old, essentially, right? I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had no idea how I was going to do it. It certainly took a few strange detours, but I've been at it. And so there's no part of me that didn't, I don't know exactly how to say that. I never had any doubt that that's what I wanted to do, but I had no idea how to get there, and so I had to just try and do things, and try what I was capable of trying, and learn things and study and practice, and lots of practice, daily, incessant trying things out. I still do. I don't have a mission statement. This is all I do. I don't have a life that isn't this, right? So for me, it's not a calling or a mission. This is all I do. Every single day of my life is essentially geared towards doing this, right? Creating workshops, teaching workshops, practicing the stuff that goes into a workshop, keeping my body, at the moment particularly, trying to really get my body to the point where I can do this for another 20 years or whatever. I'm getting up there now, age-wise. So now it's a matter of not only practicing what I do, but also making sure that my vehicle is capable of delivering these things for a bit longer, right? And so that's why I wouldn't know what my mission is other than what I'm doing. And so that's why I'm saying to you, I think it's really important that you go away from what you think it looks like and actually do it. Because when I was 12, 14, 16, 18, I didn't know it would look like this at all, right? But I knew what it would feel like, and I knew the elements of what it would entail. And along the way, I had to learn the skills to do that and the stamina to do that, right? And I mean, I've spent most of my days working anywhere between, 8 and 14 hours, day after day after day after day after day. And that's no small feat, but it's also the only thing that gives me the kind of, I don't know what the word would be, the kind of output that I'd like to have in the world, right? But the one thing that I do want to say to you is, if you're expecting that your service will fill you with love and light and joy, that's a tall order, right? Because service in its very nature is a horrible word to use, but I'm going to use it as an illustration. It's a cannibalizing of your system, right? Because you do give more than you receive. Always. It's the very nature of service, is that that it's inconvenient. And what's inconvenient about it is that it doesn't take your personal well-being into account. Very often it absolutely doesn't take your personal well-being into account, particularly then when you actually need your personal well-being. That's typically when the going gets tough out there somewhere and you have to deal with things. So it's very important that you first do take care of yourself and your trauma and the things that your body needs, so that you're in internal integrity. Because once you go into service, into the offering of yourself and your skill and your, ability, you won't have time to do that anymore. And if you do it before you are healthy or well, whatever you want to call it, there's a high chance that you'll eat yourself up. Yeah, you just have to start. You have to go, well, this is what I want to do. Who does it? How can I volunteer with them or offer my services or find out more about it? And then that will show you where are you at on your path, right? Because you might see what it actually takes and go, well, I need another year or two of proper healing before I can be, flying all over the place, being somewhere where the circumstances are such that it triggers some of my stuff. And so in that time you can learn skills, or you can give off your time, or you can give money. There's many ways to support your cause or your mission without being on the ground. And sometimes when you still have your own healing to do, there's other ways you can do it. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. But I wouldn't nail it down to exactly what it is till you've seen what's out there, because you'll be surprised where you'll end up, right? So, for instance, I have a very dear friend who always felt she was in the fashion industry. She worked for Betsy Johnson in design, and she really wanted to do something for women in India. And it had all kinds. She had all kinds of ideas, and then one fine day, her mother worked at a Krishnamurti school, and the Krishnamurti Foundation had an empty building in a village outside of Varanasi, and she was like, "Oh, I'll take it," and she moved herself to Varanasi, and she started a women's cooperative where she essentially gathered women who had no support. Husbands dead or gone or whatever, children at home, and she found people who still knew the old ways of embroidering and sewing, and taught the women, and then she designed clothing, and then she would, they would make small batch clothing, and she would send it to the yoga studios in the neighborhood she grew up in, and to be sold. And she did that till she had figured out exactly how to do it and do it well, and she still does it, and there's still real growth happening there, in the sense that there's more women, there's better education, they have childcare now, they have a little shop where the women can get food. But that's not how it started. How it started was her not speaking a word of the language or knowing where the hell to go, and she made it happen.